What's up, everybody? It's Coach Zach again, and welcome to the Temple Project. Today, we're going to be talking about the number one tool you could have for fat loss, which is going to be dun, 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 calorie and macro tracking. And let me first start by saying that is this necessarily the tool for everybody? Now, again, I've said this quite a few times. I've been coaching people with weight loss and more lifestyle stuff for the last 10 years. And it's probably been the number one topic for me in terms of sustainable dieting and food like practices. And I've tried every diet under the sun. I've tried every method you can imagine. I've worked with all sorts of shapes and sizes of people. And I will say that of all the other tools, this is by far the most effective and beneficial tool that you could have, at least in your tool bag, for a multitude of reasons when it comes to really any goal, but mainly weight loss and weight management. And when paired with a couple of the other tools I go over in a lot of my videos, it's just such a highly effective thing. And I'm going to start by going through the main reasons why I think it's the most powerful tool. Because if you're not convinced yet, let me go ahead and try to convince you. And so number one is awareness. And I think this is one of the biggest things. I actually break this into three different categories. So not only is macro and calorie tracking, good for a multitude of things, but really, I think the most important thing is the awareness that you get from it. And the first part of awareness is really the impact that food has on you. And more specifically, when you track, you really start to fully understand, like, what am I consuming and what does the breakdown of that food that I'm consuming, how does it affect me, right? So when you start to track, you really start to become aware of the types of foods that you're consuming and what does that breakdown look like. And then again, how does that making me feel? How does that, when I eat this and these are the breakdowns that I get, how does that interact with my body, right? And so you really get to see kind of the impact of the foods that you're consuming on a daily basis, right? And that is one of the most important things that I think you kind of get from tracking your macros and calories consistently. And so it really kind of helps to empower you to make better choices over time. Okay. So that's number one is food impact. Number two is accurate intake. And so what I mean by this is by tracking and becoming more aware of like the food that you're eating, you really start to understand the balance between your macronutrients and how those things, again, impact you on a daily, weekly basis. And so really kind of learning how to get the right proportions. It's much more effective and easy to understand when you actually know how much you're taking in, right? And then the other thing is you really get to understand with awareness, what is your body's personal preferences, because everybody's a little bit different. And so you start to understand kind of what your body actually prefers and how that, again, interacts with you, right? So that's the awareness part. So obviously when you start to track, you really become more aware of all these different factors. The second thing is accountability. So obviously what we pay attention to expands, or we become more enlightened to it. So simply by tracking and doing this on a daily basis and the work that you kind of put into it, especially at the beginning, really builds this accountability system. And one of the things I always talk about is when we want to change a habit or our lifestyle in particular, especially like around our fitness or our health, the more things that we can stack in a day that are in line with the lifestyle that we want, the more likely we are to achieve that or to stay consistent with that. And so what I mean is, let's say that you want to, let's take weight loss again for an example, right? Let's just stick to what we're talking about anyway. So think of somebody who wakes up in the morning and the first thing that they do is they wake up, they open their phone, they're looking at their phone, Then they kind of mosey on to the kitchen, make a pot of coffee or whatever, have their coffee, sit on the couch, they watch some TV or some news, and then they go about their day. Now, same person wakes up. First thing they do is they hop on the scale. They enter their weight into their tracking log. They take their supplements that are right next to their toothbrush. So right after they brush their teeth, they take their supplements. And then they go into the kitchen and they cook a bunch of water, maybe have some electrolytes. And then throughout the day, they're tracking their meals, right? Who do you think is more likely to stay on track with their fitness goals? Person A, who spends most of the morning on a screen, or person B, who has all these kind of little habits or rituals built into their day that are more driven towards the ideal lifestyle and body that they want? Obviously, it's person B, right? And so, again, the more things we can stack in our favor that are in line with the ideal lifestyle we want, the better. So accountability. And also, if you have a coach, it makes it a lot easier for a coach to kind of know what you're actually doing when you are tracking. Number 3 is maybe a little counterintuitive for some people, but freedom and flexibility. So a while back, I've always been somebody kind of with my food, all or nothing, right? And so I hired a coach to help me with my spending. And when I hired that coach, he told me that making a budget and really sticking to it rigorously is more freeing than just spending money all willy-nilly. And at first I was kind of wondering, okay, it was a little bit counterintuitive to me. But then when I actually thought about it, it made a lot of sense. And the first thing I thought about was kind of how I talk to my clients about the freedom of tracking, right? And so at the beginning, you really need to put these guardrails up, and it seems very difficult, and it is more difficult because there's some work involved. There's a learning curve involved as well to start doing this if you've never done it before. But once things click and this becomes secondhand nature, the really tracking gives you so much freedom and flexibility to enjoy different things that you typically wouldn't. Because again, when you're aware of something, you have more control over it, right? But if you're not aware of what's happening, or you have no idea, and you're just kind of flying by the, just kind of going all random about your day and doing things without any kind of conscious decision, then you're really not having a lot of freedom. You're just going with whatever comes up. Again, tracking is going to give you a lot more freedom, because once you know what you're actually taking in and how that affects you, you can actually plan your day and your schedule around things that you actually enjoy. So let me kind of use another example. For me, I'm a kind of a desserts person, and I actually like to eat bigger meals. So what I began doing is I would save most of my calories and my macros for the end of the day. And I always like to have some kind of a dessert. And so what I would do is I loved like these chocolate bars, and but always at the end of the night, I never had enough calories for them. And so what I started doing is I'd put my calories, or my chocolate bar, I'd log it in my food log the night before. And then I planned my day around that, right? And so it gave me a lot more freedom and flexibility, where when I was kind of just going about it, I just wouldn't eat it, because it was like I knew I was probably just not going to have enough calories for it. But by tracking and being aware of what I was doing and planning, I was able to actually have that, right? And I was still able to get the results I wanted. So that's what I mean by that. And by getting all of this, it leads to number 4, which is become more empowered, which at the end of the day is something that a lot of people don't get to experience when it comes to their health and their fitness, especially their nutrition, is the sense of empowerment, right? A lot of people feel very, I'd say trapped or lost or confused or disempowered because there's a lot of confusion around this stuff, right? But when you start to, again, understand this stuff from a logical standpoint, and the science and the basic fundamentals behind it, it makes a lot more sense, which is the biggest thing that I preach on this channel. So again, empowerment, these are the benefits of tracking. There's not a lot of other tools that give you this many benefits. And again, do you need to track forever? No, but I've done it so much that I can look at a plate and I know almost instantaneously, and just, what's the word? Just intuitively what I'm consuming, right? And even if you're a big fan of like clean eating and just going for clean foods, understanding balances and like, your macronutrients and phyto, all that stuff that you get from tracking, like that is something that rolls over into any other aspect that you want to use when it comes to your health and fitness goals. Okay. So I think it's super important to have and at least to understand it and to have that tool. So the next thing I kind of want to dive into really quick is just more so about what is a calorie, what is a macro, in the sense of tracking and how it pertains to us looking to lose weight or manage our weight and live a healthier lifestyle. So a calorie is really how we measure the energy in our food. So when you eat a piece of chicken, it has an energy value that our body can use, and we measure that with calories. So calories, a measurement of energy for our food. So let's say we eat a piece of chicken breast. All right, so we eat a piece of chicken. I'll say that's chicken, I guess. And let's say it's 8 ounces, and I'm just using fictitious numbers, okay? 8 ounces, and let's say that gives us about 150 calories of energy, right? 8 ounces of chicken breast gives us 150 calories of energy. So we eat that, we get 150 calories of energy. And let's take it a step further. And so our macronutrients is the nutritional category of energy. So a macronutrient is a nutritional category of energy. So when we think of energy, there's different kinds of energy that we can get, or different categories that we can get energy from. Okay, so it's almost the next breakdown level of calories, right? So let's think of it this way. Go back to our example. 8 ounces of chicken breast has 150 calories. Let's say our body naturally has we have a set amount of energy that we burn on a daily basis. That's our metabolism. Our metabolism is our furnace. How much energy does it take to run our body on average every single day? Right now, that's going to be what we call our metabolic rate, or our uh, BMR, basal metabolic rate. Where am I going to put this? I guess I'll just put it. I might just erase this stuff really quick. So hopefully you guys snapped that. So let's say we have a BMR. So this is our furnace. So this is how much our body naturally burns on a daily basis. This is an average. Let's say it's 2,500 calories a day. So that's how many calories we can eat a day to maintain our weight. So if we eat over the amount of energy that we burn each day, we're going to gain weight. If we eat less than what we burn on a daily basis, we will lose weight. That's fundamentally kind of how it works. Okay, so we have our chicken breast. It's 150 calories, and we naturally burn. Let's leave it at that. Naturally burn 2,500 calories. Okay, so theoretically, if we minus 150 calories from that chicken breast, we now have a new number of 2,350. So now we have 2,350 calories left in the day that we can eat. Okay, that's if we wanted to maintain our weight. Okay, so hopefully you're still with me. Let me just kind of refresh this, because I know this is going to be like confusing. We're talking about numbers, and that can start to confuse people. So let me go back. Okay, so we have a calorie, which is the measurement of energy. So all of our food we measure with calories. We have our basal metabolic rate, which is our bodies naturally burn a certain amount of energy every single day, which is our BMR. And so so in this example, our energy that we burn every day, our BMR, is 200 or 2,500 calories a day. And we're going to use an example where we eat a chicken breast that's 8 ounces and it's worth 150 calories. Okay, so in our example, we've eaten that chicken. So now we have 2,300 calories left about. And now I want to jump into where do the macronutrients come in. So I think the best way to think about this for somebody who's new is what determines if we're going to lose weight or gain weight is if we eat too much calories, too much energy, or we eat too little energy. So if we eat too little energy, we're going to we're going to lose weight. If we eat more energy than what we burn, we're going to gain weight. Now, when we lose weight, the types of calories that we consume can determine the type of weight that we lose. Okay? So let me say that again. When we eat less calories than we burn, we will lose weight, but the types of calories that we consume can affect the type of weight that we lose. So for instance, if we don't want to lose muscle and we want to lose fat, then we want to get the right types of energy in every single day. And that's where macronutrients are important, specifically protein. Okay, so there's a lot of different competing factors around a lot of different things in the fitness industry. So I really try to keep things at a base level, fundamental, simple piece for everyday people to understand fundamentals. So again, there's different ways to think about a lot of different things, but in essence, protein, we want to eat a certain amount of this every day. So that way we can maintain our muscle or a lean muscle mass and we lose fat. We don't want to eat less than what we burn and then lose muscle. We want to lose fat. And we do that by making sure we get enough protein in to support our muscle that we have on or to support any new muscle we're trying to build from weight training. Okay, so that's why macronutrients are important. And in particular, protein is the most important thing. So for somebody new, I always say focus on getting the right calorie intake and focus on getting the right amount of protein every day. Don't worry about the other macronutrients. So for this video, I'm not going to get into how to find the right number of all that. It'll be a different video, maybe tomorrow or Monday. But what I do want to talk about is more so just what to focus on and the example of the macronutrients and the calories and the basal metabolic rate and why it's important to track that stuff. So to kind of go back to where macros come in. So again, we want to make sure we get enough energy in, but then also the right breakdown of that energy to make sure the right things are happening when we're losing weight. And so macronutrients there's 3 different types of categories of macronutrients, which again are just kind of more different ways to measure that energy we intake. And so when we eat this chicken breast, there's 150 calories, but 150 calories can be broken down into the 3 macronutrients. So there's 3 main food groups that make up the energy in the food that we consume. There's proteins, carbs, and fats. And each one of these subgroups have a caloric value to them. So what do I mean by that? So we eat this chicken, and our chicken has 150 calories. Now all foods, just think of it this way for now. All foods can be broken into a nutritional value of the macronutrients. So whenever you look at a label, you can see that it'll say how many carbs, how much protein, how much fat is in it. Okay, so let's break down our chicken breast. So protein, carbs, and fats. Okay, so keep in mind this is chicken breasts. Okay, so for our macronutrients, we're going to use this table over here. So our chicken breast has 150 calories. And let's say our chicken breast has let's say it has 25 grams of protein. Okay. So our protein chicken has 25 grams of protein. So how we can figure out how many calories are in that is if we did 25 times 4, so it's 4 calories per 1 gram of protein. So if we have 25 grams, 25 times 4 calories, because there's 4 calories per gram, is going to give us 100 calories. So in this chicken breast, 100 calories of this is protein. Okay. Now let's say it has 4 carbs, 4 grams of carbs, which is going to equal. So if that's 4 grams, carbs have 4 calories per 1 gram. So it's going to be 16. So 4 times 4 is 16 calories. So our chicken breast has 100 calories from protein. It also has 16 calories from carbs. So now we can figure out, okay, well then how much fat does it have? And fat would be, so what we could do is be 150 minus 100 minus 16 gives us 34 calories. So we have 34 calories. Probably already lost some of you. That's fine. Honestly, I'm going to sum it all up at the end, so stick with me. So if we have 34 calories, now think about this. This is important to know, though. Fat has 9 calories per 1 gram. So it's double the amount of calories per gram than either carbs or protein. So I want to say this really quick. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's why a lot of people, especially in the past, were big fans of low-fat diets, because fats literally have over double the amount of calories per gram. So that's why they're more filling and they're just as vital as either one of these macronutrients. But going over on fats can put you over your calories very quickly. That's why like a handful of nuts is equivalent to like a giant bowl of like, freaking salad and veggies and stuff, right? Because it has so much dense calories. So something to think about. Okay, so back to our example. So if we divide 34 by 9, that's going to give us 3.7 grams of fat. Which honestly, I feel like I'm super close. Like if I were to actually put this into an app, I bet you this is pretty close to how much the breakdown actually is. So I'm just saying, years of tracking. So anyways, okay. So I know I've kind of gone off on a tangent here, but I just think this stuff is so important. If you can comprehend this, there's a lot of videos on a lot of this stuff. So I'm really just regurgitating a lot of information that's already out there, but it's so important. But again, this is the breakdown of our macronutrients. And at the end of the day, the most important thing, if you're tracking, is to track the amount of calories you intake and the amount of protein you intake on a daily basis, because these are the two things that are going to determine, A, the calories are going to determine if we're gaining or losing weight. B, the protein is going to determine if we're losing or gaining muscle or fat, right? So we want to make sure that we keep our muscle, and protein is also very satiating. So it's really important that we get that in, especially during a weight loss phase. Okay, so these are the two most important things that you want to pay attention to when tracking. And in another video, I will go over how to find these, but I just wanted to make sure I kind of give you an overview of like how this all plays together. How do we kind of look at food in a different way than just eat it and live with it and just try to eat clean. It's like when you start to understand how the breakdowns work and how the nutritional values fit into everything, it really starts to open your mind to like, oh, that's why this works this way. Or that's why I feel better when I eat this. Or that's why I have more energy or less energy, or why I'm not losing weight, but I'm eating a ton of, fats in my diet, And so most Americans eat a very high fat, high carb, low protein diet, which is the opposite of really what we probably want, right? So that's why it's so important to understand this stuff from a logical standpoint. And so you got to start taking ownership of your health and learning these things, not depending on other people to tell you what to do and how to do it. You just need to know the fundamentals, which I say every time. You got to know the fundamentals. Okay. So this is on its own changed my life, is like understanding this stuff. I'm a self-proclaimed food addict in a lot of ways, and like knowing and being aware has drastically changed my life. So, okay, another video I'll go through how to find all this stuff more. But again, for today, I really wanted to make sure that we went through why is tracking so important? Why is it the most effective tool you can know, no matter what your approach is or what your ideals are? What is a calorie? What is a macro? Our base metabolic rate is really how much energy we burn, and understanding energy balances and how we can manipulate them to get the results that we want. Okay. So keep that in mind. Rewatch this video a couple times if you have to. Drop me a question in the chat or personally, and really let me know kind of your thoughts. If you haven't already done so, check out our other social media platforms, especially the Facebook page, the Temple Project. And it really is a good cause, bringing more awareness around men's mental health and bringing resources to men across the world in the US. And it's a really important cause. It's really, we're working to become a nonprofit, and I'd love your support. Just give us a like, give us a follow. Ask any questions you have on there. I'll be there, answering questions for people. And most of the stuff we offer is free. And, your support really helps me to be able to continue to do this stuff. And so, So anyways, next video will probably be on, again, how to find your calories and protein goals. Super important thing to go over. And I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover for today. Hopefully this helped. Again, if it didn't, just let me know and I'd be happy to clarify anything for you. So anyways, have a good weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Take care.